So we're talking about curfews. I didn't really have a set curfew when I was growing up, but it was kind of like I was supposed to know the time to come in, and I didn't ever come in at that time, apparently, because it varied. But I can still remember what was really trying to sneak in at 1 o'clock in the morning or 1:30. I mean, I was not a late goer too much. And there was that one board that I always tried to avoid, but it seemed I think somebody moved it on me because I know where it was, and I try to step around it, and the one that I'd
So
step on.
you grew up with wood floors.
Well, yeah, well, we had carpet when I was at a certain point, but even that didn't stop the wood. They were nice wood floors too, but there was always that creaking board, and you'd hit the board and it would go, and is that you, Don? And yeah, Mom, you're a bit late, don't you think? That, and it went into a little, and she'd want to have a conversation, and I was a lot of times not in the best of shapes to be able to have a good conversation. And so I would avoid it as possible, but she wouldn't let that go by.
We had an alarm system put in when I was, I guess, a teenager. And we had to shut that off because it would beep when you came in the house. I don't remember if that was really an issue. What I remember is my senior prom. And I was raised Catholic, and my boyfriend was at the time. And we decided to go to church like early Sunday morning. Is that a little disrespectful?
Might be.
Yes. Ignore him. Early Sunday morning after prom. And I remember being, I guess, I don't know if I was in the house to change or something. And my mom was like, "Are you just getting home?" And I think I fumbled through no, I'm not just getting home. We're going out to church. Or I got away with some things. I was the quiet middle child.
Yeah, think about some of the stuff the excuses we'd use. I often wonder whether my mom really fell for them or if she just allowed them to go by.
I know I had a curfew in high school. I can't remember exactly what time. I'm pretty sure I had to be home by a certain time. It's kind of a blurry memory as I think back on it now. We were thinking about other stories, and our kids are not the type to be going out.
We hope they would reach curfew.
Our older two kids. So.
Kind of homebodies, I would say, in a way, or they would go to friends' houses for the evening, but just play games. They didn't drink or do any kind of bad drugs or anything like that ever. They still don't. And
what kind of curfew stories do you have?
So, hello, this is Don.
And this is Gina.
And this is podcast number 62. And today we're going to be talking about alternative ways to handle your child's behavior and using problem solving. But before we do that,
so Don, don't you love when I make a smoothie?
Oh, the noise of the ninja. Oh my gosh.
It's really wonderful.
I've never heard one this loud though. I mean, it
mixes it up. I've got spinach in here, and
it also breaks the glass of the windows around it. It's so loud, but not quite that, but it does rattle my brain when you go through that, but it's for a good cause, I guess.
So ask me what's in my smoothie.
What is in your smoothie, Gina?
Well, bananas that I like to freeze as green as possible because they're more starch and less sugar when they're green. And Q Science has these wonderful mixes. This is the vanilla one, and I've started using
it doesn't come that crumpled.
I use parts of it because I'll also put some,
there's a lot more in it too when you buy it.
Collagen peptides in it. I'll put banana, I'll put spinach. My favorite is to use cherries. And it's got a mix of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, all kinds of good stuff in here, and as well as protein. There are no artificial sweeteners. There's no refined sugar in it. I believe there's some stevia in it.
What is that then?
This is Armor.
I had it wrong. This is
my favorite. This is a chai spice mushroom blend, and I love chai. I drink chai tea all the time. Our youngest teases me that I constantly have a cup of chai tea in my hand.
Yes.
I came downstairs this morning and she heard me come out of the shower and I'm carrying a cup. She's like, "Were you drinking chai in the shower?" But this is a powerful antioxidant blend. And if you like the flavor of chai spice, you can mix it with cold or hot drinks. I'll often put it in with my chai tea bag to make a super powerful chai drink. Sometimes I'll put it in my smoothie with some vanilla powder and it makes a yummy chai vanilla smoothie. And I know it boosts my energy.
Yeah, it's
Having
been
these
good
products.
for you.
And the other one that I really love, and they have several varieties of their Fuse. This is a full spectrum hemp oil. So it's not just CBD, it's all parts of the plant. And it comes in different flavors. It also comes in a THC free variety for anyone who's concerned about drug screening and the like at work. I usually get the cinnamon because the powerful healing elements of cinnamon. This is the berry flavor. I've really found that this helps bring my anxiety down. I'm on other medications for my depression and bipolar disorder, yet I find taking this really helps calm that anxiety.
So Q Science has a lot of different products, and you're going to show the sprays now.
There's a whole collection of sprays, and I really, I've talked about this before, that the vitamin D spray, because it's a spray, it's methylated, so it gets absorbed better in your system, and a spray is absorbed better. My child's vitamin D levels went from 20 to 47 in a month by using this D3 spray. This is a B12? A B12 spray. They have a sleep spray. They have quite a few different, they have a vitamin C, which is great for winter times and cold season.
And the kind of the basis that I see out of Q Science is that it absorbs better. And we've talked about the fact of, tired of flushing our supplements down the toilet, down the drain, along with the money that goes along with it. And this is where you find a product that absorbs so much better and makes for better health.
So if you want to learn more,
go to www.focusedhealthyfamily.com/Q Sciences. That's the letter Q, Sciences with a S. Or you can go to our homepage at focusedhealthyfamily.com, and there's a Q Science logo there where you can click on and find out a lot more about it.
And you can find a link to it in this podcast as well. If you're just listening to us, we have this on YouTube now as well. If you want to see pictures of these products,
you can find it all there. So let's go back to our podcast where we're talking about this, that one of the scenarios that we do.
The scenario we proposed from last week.
It was number 4, and it was about curfew and your child coming in late from curfew. So we're going to play it now.
After you listen to the parent-child situation, please add your response to our conversation.
And now, here's today's scenario. Your teenager comes home past their curfew again, coming home past 11 p.m. on a school night.
You're late again. This is the 3rd time in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Sorry?
I just forgot what time it was. We were having fun and I just forgot.
You forgot? Are you kidding me? That is no excuse.
It won't happen again, I promise. Next time I will remember.
We worry about our kids when they're out with their friends and they don't respond to us when we call or text them.
When you were a teen, did you have a curfew?
What did your parents do if you got home late?
And then now we can talk about a little bit about how do you deal with that kind of behavior? What do you do to be able to change it and possibly do it without heavy-duty punishment going along?
Before we get into the how could we do it differently, let's talk about that scenario. And if you respond this way to your child, if you're angry and demanding, well, what's wrong with you? Why don't you get home late? You're doing this all the time. Have you had that conversation with your kids? Have your parents had that kind of conversation with you? And what was the result? How did that conversation go? What did your kids say to you? Did they just get mad and angry and yell and run away, slam a door?
Well, and one of the things we talk about in our How to Talk So Kids Will Listen workshops we do based on, show you the book again, um, is we talk about the idea of what that really does in a child's mind when you're punishing them, when you're yelling at them, when you're, degrading them, whatever it might be. Two things can happen in their mind. One, they can take it against themselves. Oh, I'm such a terrible child. See what I've made my parents angry. I've made them yell at me. And so they take it internally and beat themselves up about it. Or the other way they take it is that they start building resentment and anger. I'll show them next time. I'll do it better, and they won't catch me, or they just start building up a real anger towards their parents, you know, and then you end up with a teenager that wants to get the heck out of the house and doesn't want to be around you. You don't build a good relationship.
Yeah. And then they don't want to come to you and talk to you about things that are bothering them. If they find you snapping or not effectively listening to them, maybe you're the type that starts telling a story. Well, when I was a kid, this happened. And then this is, they're tuning you out. They don't want to listen to you ramble about your own experiences, especially in that moment.
Or do you start going after their character? Oh, you're so stupid for doing this, or they pose something that really knocks you down, basically telling you how bad you are, and all that does is just knock the self-esteem.
And it could be more subtle. It could be a little bit of sarcasm,
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe next time you get home that late, you could put a pot of coffee on for me, or
Yeah,
just other subtle ways
maybe
that
a little passive
can be
aggressive.
stabbing, and maybe we think we're doing it in fun or with a little bit of a hint of guilt thrown in there. Yet, how can we be more direct, more clear, concise, without just letting them do whatever they want, still having some boundaries?
Giving them a way to resolve it themselves too is important, because that builds their self-esteem and their confidence in being able to handle something and resolve it.
Yeah. Well, first you talk about the problem, what bothered you. So let's get into that a little bit. What kind of validating responses could we use instead of the ones we played out in the role play?
Well, one is being able to express your own feelings about it, again, without going against their character, but saying, this really upsets me, and I worry about you when you don't show up, or you don't text me or call me and let me know you're running late. But expressing how it feels to you.
And keeping it simple.
Yeah.
Not going on and on. When you aren't home on time, I worry something's happened to you. You can also then state your expectations. I expect you to call me or text me if you're going to be late. Clear and simple. This is what your expectation is.
You can also show them how they can make amends to it, how they can do something different the next time.
And then problem solving. This is the big one.
Yeah. And I think that's what we really want to talk about today, because in this scenario, I think problem solving is one of the most powerful ways to be able to change that behavior, but also get to the root of what's going on, and also give them the opportunity to figure out how to do it differently, and again, make amends or to change things. So where do we start?
I was going to say something, and then I'm like, Don, remember to look
Sorry.
at the camera.
Yes.
You're on camera. So discussing the problem, stating your expectations, letting your concerns, and then on the flip side of that, we need to listen to what they're saying. We need to validate their feelings. You were having such a great time, and you lost track of time. I understand how that can happen. I imagine you're frustrated that whatever, your phone died and you didn't have your charger to be able to reach out, that you forgot what time it is. Validating what they're saying, what their feelings are. You were upset. You got in a fight with your boyfriend, and you were so wrapped up in that You didn't think about the time. I imagine that was difficult. So hearing their feelings.
Well, and one of the thoughts I had here too is if you're really angry about it, is maybe taking a few minutes to kind of break away from it, to let yourself come back at a calmer place with your responses too. Say, I'm really upset right now because you came home late. I'd like to take a few minutes just to calm myself down,
And then I'd like to talk
and
about
then we
this.
talk about it.
And it's powerful to let your child know, okay, you know what? I'm getting upset. I want to take a breath here. Let's take a few minutes, let's talk about this maybe the next morning. Let's talk about this, after we eat something.
Yeah. So in other words, you don't want to react to it. You want to respond to it. And when you're angry, it's a reaction. It's a knee-jerk reaction sometimes that can cause you to say things or do things that really don't help any.
And giving your child that opportunity as well to say, you know what, I need a minute, Mom. I'm so exhausted. Yet follow through on when you are going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then we talked about problem solving. So what does that look like? So what it looks like is you're brainstorming a list of ideas.
And again, you're doing it at a time that's not in that crux of the moment when you're angry or both of you are angry or upset. It's saying, again, taking the break or saying, tomorrow morning when we're both in a better place, I want to kind of talk through this.
And think about ways that we could do this differently. I want to talk through this. Sounds like, oh, she's going to lecture.
That's true. That's true.
Lectured at, but I'd like to look at new ways of approaching this situation. How can we do it differently so that we don't wind up in the situation where I'm angry and you're upset, and we wind up just being angry and resentful at each other?
So
you come up with that time and that place to do that,
and then you approach them by saying something like, is this a good time for us to do this? We talked about doing it this morning or whatever the time was. Is it a good time? Just checking in with them on that part. We want to make sure that they're at a good place too, in being able to talk about it.
And so then it really helps to take a pencil and paper and say, okay, what we're going to do is we're first going to just come up with ideas. We're going to write them all down without judgment. I'll have some ideas. You'll have ideas. We're not going to critique each other's ideas. First, we're just going to come up with them.
You almost like take that, make the T down the page where you split the page. So on one side, you're putting their ideas and one side you're putting your ideas.
Or you just make a list of all the ideas. So you come up, and you remind them, if they jump at something you've said, you say, right now, let's just write it all down. And you've got to remind yourself that when they say something. And this is a skill we've talked about with any age kid, no matter what the issue is, something that's happened more than once, something that you really want to prevent from happening in the future. You can even do this preventatively.
Yeah.
So you're coming up with your ideas. That's the first part of this. You're writing down, okay, you don't have a curfew anymore. I stop worrying. I get you an Apple Watch and you can set a time to remind me.
Well, and here's an important factor in what she's saying is you don't want to put judgment on it as they're telling it. You want to be able to accept, no matter how, when you're, a lot of times with small kids, if you go through this, they'll want to throw out goofy ideas or, I want ice cream every day of the week, and you don't make, even though as a parent, in the back of your mind, you're going, that'll never work. I'm never letting that happen. You don't make that judgment at that point. You let them come out with whatever, let them be as creative and thoughtful as possible so that they can come up with solutions, and they'll hopefully come up with some good ones in there too.
And in the process of it, you can add a little play into it, keeping in mind not being sarcastic. But even with an older kid, I'll buy you a car that sends signals of where you are, to let me know where you're at, or I'll invent, a time machine or come up with some fun things. And from all the different ideas, though, you might come to new ideas. So you get everything down on paper and then you say, okay, now we're going to go through them one by one. And we each get to put some input in it. And again, using I statements. I like this idea. What I don't like about this idea, the problem with this is, and you kind of go through them line by line. You give them the opportunity to shut down something you've said, as far as, I really don't like that idea because of this. And in this process, you might be able to change the ideas a little bit, come up with new ones, or maybe there's some in there that you can agree to. Maybe it's a collection of the ideas. So then you decide on the ones you like.
And I think another point we got to make here is that we take the but out of it. So as Gina said, she said, the problem is, or I feel that it would be, you don't want to go, with the example of ice cream every day. You want to say, so you say that you want to have ice cream every day, but that is not going to work.
That's not good for you. And
Yeah.
that's going to cause these problems.
Yeah.
And the
Versus,
problem is,
yeah.
you'd like to have ice cream every day.
Or as I see it, or as I feel. Yeah.
Then we're not going to get nutrition from other foods in our body. And how's that going to affect how we feel?
So let's look at the next one, kind of, and
So
move on from it.
You kind of took it out of the whole curfew thing, but that kind of simplifies that
Oh,
example.
true. That's true.
Just, how about you just don't worry at all, Dad?
Yeah.
The problem is, I do worry. I'm your parent.
And that's going to be hard,
I'm
hard to get rid of
concerned about
that.
well-being. And unfortunately, I think it's important that I worry about you. And so you go through them. And then when you come up with the plan, you say, okay, this is our plan. Let's reiterate it. Give them as much voice and power in this as possible. Kind of, give them the opportunity to go through the ideas so that it's not so much of a lecture, not so much of you being teacher, but engaging them. Because when they have a say in the ideas and the solutions to the problem, they're going to be more invested in following through on it. And then having it, whether it's written down, a reminder, and then before that next opportunity, before they go out, kind of going through it again and having a reminder.
Well, and also it can be kind of an accountability. A month goes by and it's still happening. You can then come to them and say, you and I talked about it and we came to an agreement on these factors. And I don't see it happening. Do we need to go through it again? How can we resolve that?
And another note on that, maybe when you're coming up with your list of ideas and there's something that you want to include and they don't like it, you could even incorporate, all right, we're going to try it this way for this period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not able to follow through, then I think we need to add this other element, that this needs to be part of it, right? And you get them to agree to it. And maybe it's a lot for them to take in. Maybe they need to step away for a day. Maybe, it needs to be finished the next day, or to give a little time to breathe.
It doesn't hurt to review it with them,
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, or every week, couple
before
weeks
you
or something.
come to your decision, kind of backing it up from the brainstorming, so that they can really be involved in it. And by doing this and getting into the habit of it, you're teaching them the skill of problem solving. You're working out solutions to current problems you have. You're helping to reduce that reactivity that you have in the moment when they don't follow through on something like getting home on time. And so it lowers the anxiety for you and your child. And it really builds to foster that better relationship, which it's so important to have a good relationship with our children, especially as they're teenagers, because they're going to run into some situations and some problems. And we want them to be able to turn to us and come to us for support and to be able to share if they get into trouble in some way. And if we don't have that relationship with them where they feel that they can speak up, where they feel like we'll actually listen and not just get angry at them, judge them and punish them, then they're not going to follow through and do that. And then thinking about in the long term, what do you want for your children? You want them to be able to independently make decisions as they enter the world, as they go out on their own, whether they're moving out of the house, going off to college, entering those early adult years, which can be so challenging because they're still growing and developing. Their brain is still developing and they're still learning these skills. And so by starting this early, problem solving, working through things, your communication skills, it really matters. how it affects your children. And we have, testimony to this. We have a 21-year-old daughter and a 25-year-old son.
And a
And
14-year-old.
we
Remember all of them.
our grown kids reach out to us. They connect with us when they have an issue. They call us, they text us.
Yeah.
Don will frequently call on the way home from work just to check
Still.
in and hear how things are
And
going.
he's been out of the house now, how long? But what, about 4 years, I guess, something like that,
So we have that relationship with them. My daughter has invited me to go see Bastille with her in concert. And just the fact that she wants to spend time with her mom and that she knows she can come to me. And she'll even ask me, is this a good time, Mom? Are you in a good place to be able to listen? Something I want to talk about. And she knows there's certain times of day it's better to reach out to Dad because Mom's probably asleep on the couch. And we have that trust and that relationship with them. And no, it's not always smooth and easy sailing. And in
No, we
years,
have disagreements.
there were times when we got mad and we yelled at each other and the storming away. I very clear memories of our middle child when she was a teen. She'd get mad. She'd go up to her room. If I would just back off and let her be, within a half hour, usually, she would come down and apologize. And it wasn't because I was insisting that she do that. It was just she realized how she reacted. And I did the same. I mirrored that. I apologized when I yelled, when I got angry, when I lost my temper, when I didn't effectively communicate. And so they learn that skill. Our children are learning from us all the time, even when we don't want them to be.
Well, we've talked about this too. If you think about the fact that when they get out into the world, even as teenagers, what kind of crowd are they going to get with? What kind of group that they might get with? And if they haven't learned to solve problems on their own, they've based all their decision making off of what we tell them or what we make them do. Is that what's going to happen in the group that they're in?
Looking to other people.
They're going to listen to them
for them and just do what they're told.
Yeah.
Is that what we really want? We want to raise children who just do what they're told. Think about that in the greater scheme of things. And versus someone who challenges a thought, someone who questions it, someone who ponders over it. Maybe they don't independently make that decision, but they reach out, they ask for help. They say, this friend is not always reliable. Let me talk to this other person who I find more trustworthy.
Well, I remember you and I talking about we raised our kids to be independent, to ask questions, doubt things that we say, and just question it. And I can remember thinking how difficult that was for us because we didn't grow up necessarily that way. And not that my parents weren't necessarily mean to me, but you didn't really question what they said. And so we didn't have that, but our kids were coming at us with that, and it was challenging for us, but we still did it. And it
was a new skill that we needed to learn.
Well, the other thought that I've been thinking about is that I can remember when the kids were really young, like in their 2s and 3s, and people were asking us about whether they were in their terrible 2s or whatever, and we didn't really go through a lot of that. I mean, I think 4 was probably some of the age.
5.
But I always remember people telling us, wait till they're a teenager, you think this is bad, and we didn't go through that either. We didn't go through the rebellious kids that didn't want to be around us, that didn't want to live in the house or whatever, couldn't wait to get out. And I think that's because of the fact that we did a lot of what we're talking about here in working through things, letting them decide on things, letting them come up with solutions to things. It just really was effective, and I think, like we're talking about, it's given us really good relationships with our kids versus, that are not afraid to talk to us about things. And we've got a lot of things they've had a lot of issues. They've had a lot of things that really worked against them, the OCD and the different things that have the anxiety. And it's made it more difficult for them, but it didn't mess up our relationship because we were always there supporting them.
There were times when the relationship was squeezed or tested, and it
Oh,
was
yeah.
difficult, yet we got through it.
Yep.
And I really enjoyed raising teenagers. We've been doing it for a very long time. Having
Little twitch in the
a
eye.
5 and a 14-year-old, but there have been so many exciting moments because as you watch your child's brain grow and develop and gain new insights and new abilities to process things, and it can be so much fun. Going to Girl Scout camp with my middle child when they were all teenagers, doing film club with my oldest, hanging out with a really fun group of teens as they wrote and created and filmed a short movie.
Well, selling popcorn with my oldest was so neat to see, and how he's now turned out to be quite the salesperson, even though he's not really in a direct sales position anymore, but
Well, he's moved up into management.
yeah, but he was that good. And watching him sell, like I guess I had to tell you, because I just get a kick out of it. I always told I was doing talks with them. I was the colonel,
I called you the
popcorn colonel for
the scout
leading the thing, and I was training them on how to sell the popcorn. And I always told them, one, I would tell them that they weren't selling popcorn, they were selling scouts, and this was a way of donating and giving the scouts. But I also told them that, if they won't buy a whole case or a box or whatever, see if they'll just give $1 towards it. And I remember this one scenario where my oldest was there, and he was walking up a driveway, and he kind of met this gentleman about halfway down the driveway, and we were wheeling around with a wagon full of popcorn, and he was asking this gentleman if he would like to buy some popcorn. He went over all the different ones. He said, and the guy said, "No, I don't think I want to buy anything like that now." And he turned, before my son could say anything, he turned and started walking back up the driveway. Well, my son didn't give up there. He went right. He just kind of, I wouldn't say stormed up there, but he ran up to the guy and said, "Hey, do you think you could at least give $1?" And the guy just looked at him and kind of got a little chuckle. And I think he ended up getting like $5. And it was just this persistence of it, and the ability just not to take a no. Anyway, I just thought that
a lot from you, and that you went with him on this experience, that you were involved and engaged in him and his scout troop, that they could learn these skills together. And so, it's talking about the whole relationship idea and having a relationship with your child.
Well, in scouts, I remember too, not thinking that he knew what he was talking about. I don't know if you remember the arrow that we had to make. It was the order of the arrow.
Yes.
And I kept telling him, you need to make this. You need to be doing this. And I made him actually make the whole, you had to paint it certain ways and do different things to this arrow, and then build a mount for it. In fact, I think it's still sitting in my office. And he kept saying, "No, Dad, you're supposed to be doing this with me and for me." It was, I'm trying to remember if it was for or with or whatever, but, and I said, "No, I think this is, part of this is you're learning how to do this." And when he got it all done, he did it all. I actually read that the parents make it for and presented to him. Like, oh man, I didn't. I didn't, I don't know, trust or understand that he knew what he was talking about, which was a mistake, because he's always been very good at knowing what he's supposed to be doing and how he's supposed to be doing it. So
it's a little side note, a little off topic.
Yeah, sorry, it just brought that up in my memories as we were talking about. Well, it does talk about, we've worked with him and learning how to solve things himself. And I think that, he was trying to solve that for himself by telling me that I'm supposed to be doing it,
And yet he was willing
He still went ahead and did it.
To be a part of it. And so again, it speaks to that idea of relationships. So we'd love to hear from you on these topics. We're going to take a pause from the scenarios. Next week, we will be doing a different podcast. We have a wonderful interview with a speech language pathologist.
Yeah, Lenora Edwards.
And then we'll be returning later with some more of these scenarios because we have a whole collection of them. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Again, we'd love to hear your comments, your reflections with these different scenarios that we presented now over the past 4 weeks. How have these played out for you in your own personal life when you were growing up, and how that affects you as you parent and in situations you've had with your kids? We'd love to discuss these things further, brainstorm more ideas. And that's why we love the book, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And we became trainers in facilitating the workshop based on this. So we'd love to provide that for you. So reach out to us if you're interested in learning more about that. Again, go to our website at Focused Healthy Family. Look down here on the show notes, either if you're on YouTube or where you're watching this on a podcast. Be sure to tune in to our Tuesday tips. Every Tuesday, we do a short 15-minute or less podcast. And if you're interested in receiving those in written format, you can sign up for that on our website. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, gina.focusedhealthyfamily.com. Write a review, give us feedback wherever you listen to this.
And we're here to help coach and help you through these different scenarios and in situations too.
And we consider ourselves family coaches because we want to work with the entire family. You know, if you have a kid, typically people come to us with a kid with a particular behavior problem or challenges that they're dealing with. And yet we help them to see the whole family's part in it and how we really need to include everyone because it does affect everyone in the family. So thank you for joining us today. And remember, how you speak to your children today shapes their future as well as yours.